Right, welcome back to our viewing panel Slugfest. We are talking about my personal favorite category this year, Best Actor in a Drama Series. This lineup is insane. It may be even the best lineup in the history of this category. So let me go ahead and read down the list of nominees and the episodes they submitted, just in case anyone's watching this and they don't know. So we have Bryan Cranston for Breaking Bad. He submitted Ozymandias. Jeff Daniels, last year's winner for The Newsroom, he submitted the finale, Election Night Part 2. Jon Hamm for Mad Men, he submitted The Strategy. Kevin Spacey, House of Cards, submitted the finale, Chapter 26. And then we have two guys from True Detective. We have Woody Harrelson for The Locked Room and Matthew McConaughey for Form and Void. And so, Ralph, let me come to you first. I kind of want to leave the number one and number two slots for the end, so maybe just like tell me who you have in last place, and let's go from there.
Okay. In last place, I have Jon Hamm.
And then why don't you actually just go ahead and read your whole list.
Okay. Right. First place, I have Bryan Cranston. Then I have Matthew McConaughey, Kevin Spacey in third, Woody Harrelson in fourth, Jeff Daniels in fifth, and Jon Hamm in sixth.
Okay. And then Matt, what is your order?
Okay, do you want me to start from the top?
Yes.
Okay. Number one, I've got Woody Harrelson. Number two, Matthew McConaughey. Number three, Bryan Cranston. Number four, Kevin Spacey. Number five, Jeff Daniels. And number six, Jon Hamm.
I feel like you just said Merritt Wever. Did you say Woody Harrelson?
Love it.
Wow. Okay, I can't wait to get back to you.
Me too.
Okay, Rob, you're six.
Okay, after much deliberation, I have McConaughey in 1, Cranston in 2, Harrelson in 3, Spacey 4, Hamm 5, Daniel 6.
And then Charlie.
Let me see. Number one, I have Matthew McConaughey. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Number two, Bryan Cranston. 3, Woody Harrelson. 4, Jon Hamm. 5, Kevin Spacey. And last, unfortunately, the great Jeff Daniels.
Okay, so Ralph, earlier I jumped the gun a little bit. Now that we've all listed our nominations, now let's go ahead and start at the bottom and then go up to the top. So you have, did you say Jon Hamm in your last place?
I do. I have Jon Hamm last.
Why is he in sixth place?
I watched his episode yesterday, and I don't get it. Like there was nothing that was, the story wasn't about him. It wasn't. It was all about Peggy, as I believe was what her name is. I don't watch the regularly, so and you know, he was so reactive to everything. There was nothing that he was pushing. Yeah, he was helping her with an ad campaign, but it was about a burger joint. I mean, it really wasn't. There really wasn't much for Jon Hamm did in that episode. There was no explosive scene. There was no emotional range that he had. There was no massive impact that he had. He pretty much, his wife came, he slept with her, he went on a Saturday or Sunday, a weekend to go help with his campaign, and then they had a hamburger at the end and they called it a close. So, I don't know, maybe he's waiting for next year to get that Emmy, because the tape wasn't there this year.
Yeah, it may be the least impactful Jon Hamm episode we've seen, and this is his sixth nomination, right?
Yeah.
Matt, where do you have Jon Hamm?
I have him at the bottom too, and I think, as you say, it's very reactive. It's like, here's the thing with the Jon Hamm performance: it's nuanced and it's subtle, which we are used to with Jon Hamm performances. This hasn't been some big, flashy, showy role that's just been an Emmy magnet. But this is, as you say, Marcus, probably his most subtle and his least flashy of all. There's no big ad pitch. There's no theatrics. Like In the Suitcase was his big tape from season 4. But to be honest, he hasn't done a bad job of submitting here. Like, of all the episodes this season, he's got a nice arc. He's likable enough in the episode and things. I think. Like, I really think it's this season he didn't have that great tape to submit, so he went with a nice one. It probably won't win him the Emmy again, but yeah, it's a shame, because I think maybe Jon Hamm's been the best actor on TV of the past sort of 7 years. Right. And I think and it's unfortunate that his type of performance isn't the one that attracts Emmys.
And Charlie, is he going to win an Emmy for eating that burger?
Well, man, no one eats a burger like Jon Hamm. I'll tell you that. Probably not. I will say there is an overdue factor for him, so that could play. That can play to his favor. The one thing I will say about his episode that's a really positive thing is that he's actually very likable throughout the whole episode. You know, you don't see him as this kind of sleazy or just kind of abrasive person that we've seen, even though that's just the nature of his character that we've seen in other episodes, even when he does become vulnerable. I think there's something. It's a good submission. It's just it just doesn't compete with the competition that he has this year.
It's kind of like more of the same. Like, we've seen this performance before. We've seen him do better than this before, and he's never won. Rob, do you have anything extra to add here?
Only that if he couldn't win for the suitcase, then I just have a feeling he will never win. And don't get me wrong, I want Jon Hamm to win an Emmy, I really do. But unless he has like a 14-minute monologue where he cries, shits his pants, and shoots somebody, I can't see him winning an Emmy, and that's the problem. That's the problem.
That's what I needed to do.
I have a feeling next year, Bryan Cranston won't be in this race. McConaughey won't. Harrelson won't. And next year could be Jon Hamm's year, depending on how he does in the finale. If Matt Weiner tries to write him an Emmy speech, which would be awesome for Jon Hamm. But anyways, I don't think he's going to win this year. Let's go ahead to Jeff Daniels. Charlie, did you have him in last place?
Yes, I do have him in last place.
Why?
And,
he won last year.
He won last year. I had him in second place last year. So I mean, I may be coming to this as someone who watched all of the Newsroom last year and actually and likes the show. I had issues with season 2, as I think a lot of people did, but it just seemed like everything was so rushed in that episode, and there was no big standout scene that really just sort of tied everything together. It didn't have that for me.
And Ralph, what about you?
I have Jeff Daniels in 5th. I'm not a regular viewer of the Newsroom. I watched a few episodes in the first season and a couple this season for various reasons. But I actually thought Jeff Daniels is scary once again. I mean, I think he has one scene in particular where at the very end he's running around the newsroom looking for his executive producer / girlfriend. And then he proposes to her, and it's a really heartwarming scene, and it's just, him baring his soul to her, saying, please, take me now, I'm ready, and, let's get married. And then they announce the Newsroom, and it's a really, and I think like next year, if he submitted this next year, even though he's not going to be in the race, he submitted next year, he could potentially be a top 2 contender. I just think with, as we said, with McConaughey, Cranston, Harrelson, I don't think he's going to win again, but then again, we all said he wasn't going to win last year, so what the hell do we know?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Oh, mate.
That wedding proposal scene is really, really good. It's his most impactful, memorable scene, but for the other 58 minutes, he's sitting at that desk just reading off of a script, basically, because he's doing his job. He's a news anchor.
He's also there's also the whole staff is about to quit, right? And he's telling the staff, no, if anybody's going to quit, it's going to be me. So he's kind of got a little bit of stuff going on there, but again, it's just not much.
His episode last year was so unlikable. I remember that's why I didn't have him winning. This year he is likable. I mean, he's jumping on the sword, even though it really wasn't his fault. He's taking he's taking all of the responsibility upon himself, and same with Charlie and Mac. So Matt, where do you have Jeff Daniels?
I have him in 5th as well. I just think with some of these contenders, it's going to be hard for him to overtake them this year, and he doesn't have that. Like, he may have been unlikable last season, but he had this amazing big speech that sort of did have that rootability factor. Like, he sort of a guy who by the end of the show sort of comes around and reports the news the way it's meant to be reported, comes out of his shell sort of thing. So I think there was sort of a real rootability for him last year. This year, the one thing that I think is in his column is I think he submitted wisely with the proposal scene at the end. It is heartwarming, it is really nice, and it is something very different to everyone else in this race. And I think sort of like a Hail Mary pass. It was always going to be hard for him to beat a McConaughey, a Cranston, a Harrelson. So he's put something in there that's very different. And if you've got a lot of romantics on the panel for drama lead actor, they'll vote for Jeff Daniels.
All right. And Rob?
I thought it was really incongruous that he won last year. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't a show that Hollywood seemed to really take to. The voters didn't really love it and lavish it with nominations. But he has the big speech, as Matt alluded to, and I think that got him over the line there. This time he doesn't have that, and I just thought it was a bit of a meh episode. And I have him in 6th, and if he wins again, I'm going to be very, very surprised.
Mm-hmm. So now we have Kevin Spacey for House of Cards. I have him in my 4th slot. He submitted the finale. It's a really good episode. It's where he becomes, spoiler alert, he becomes president of the United States through some mechanizations, what's the word, of his own choosing. He orchestrates this. He's president without ever receiving a single vote. It's genius. Can he win, Matt?
I guess he could win. He's Kevin Spacey, 2-time Oscar winner, in a show that's got like a lot of buzz and love from the Academy. It's sort of an edgy choice to go with a Netflix show. They haven't got their big Emmy win yet, and I feel like there'd be some people who'd like to say, oh, look, we're the Emmys. We're sort of ahead of the curve on where TV's going. We're embracing the future. And it's a good tape. Like, he's got the letter that he writes to Raymond on his typewriter. Oh, no, to the president, sorry, on his typewriter, which is sort of nice. And it ends with him in the Oval Office. And it's sort of like a good episode for him. But he doesn't have the flashy theatrics, the big scene that I think will get him over the line. So, in a divided race, I think he's going to be high on quite a few ballots, but I'm not sure whether it's quite a strong enough episode. If they take into account things other than just the episode, that's when he becomes a real contender.
And Ralph, what about you? He's a 2-time Oscar winner.
Yeah, I have him in 3rd. I'm a little higher on him than I am than most of you guys are. I think the typewriting speech scene that he does have that's like 6 minutes long is pretty powerful. He gets to explain how his father almost committed suicide, and now he can, when he was a young kid, and also throughout the episode, you see him getting defeated a lot, especially at the beginning portions, and at a time, at a point, he wants to give up, and then Claire is the one who has to kind of push him and say, you do whatever the hell you have to do, and that's when he starts the letter and everything, and then at the end, you have that really awesome scene that closes out season 2 where he pounds on the desk because he's president and he got where he didn't think he was going to be at the beginning of the episode. So it's kind of it's a great kind of victorious arc that he has there, and he's not a hateful Frank that you can't stand as some other episodes earlier in the season. I think he's really got a shot here because he plays vulnerability really well. He's got that speech, and he's 2-time Oscar winner Kevin Spacey, who hasn't won yet.
And Charlie, what about you? Where do you stand on Spacey?
I have him in 5th. I might move him up to 4th. I think there's definitely. I think what Matt said is just absolutely perfect. When you get the episode was good, but if the panel starts taking into consideration factors other than just the episode, then he really becomes a player in this.
All right. And Rob, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I love this character. If he wins, I'll be up on my feet applauding. That final scene that Ralph talked about, it goes for about a minute and it's quite silent when he goes into the Oval Office and he throws the chair, the president's chair, out of his way and stands at that table and stares down the barrel of the camera, pounds the desk, and it goes to black. Really, really, really got me. And I love Kevin Spacey. I think he's a brilliant actor. I want him to win, but this category is just so difficult, and so that's why I have him in fourth.
So let's talk about our top three here. And Matt, I want to start with you because you shocked me about 15 minutes ago and you said you have Woody Harrelson in first place. What do you see that I don't see? Because I have him in third.
Okay. It's sort of like the way, okay, like these three next people, I could see either one winning, and it was really hard. And I've just watched some of those episodes. I watched some last night, some this morning, and just like, even when you asked me, I was like, oh, what are my top three in what order? Because in my head they were all shuffling around, and oh, sorry, and I landed on Harrelson because it's almost not what I saw from Harrelson, but what I didn't see from McConaughey when I was watching the tapes. Like, I sort of had this idea that there's this big gap. Like, McConaughey was great, and Harrelson not as good. And part of me just was getting more annoyed by Matthew McConaughey than I'd remembered the first time I was watching the show. I don't know who rambles more, Matthew or his character in the show. I can see some people ranking him low. I can see some people like being a bit turned off by Matthew in the race, and I can see Harrelson getting more just consistently high votes, someone who's been in the TV industry for longer, someone who's got some pretty, not long, but some flashy scenes, and some scenes where he actually shouts and gets a bit more mad than Matthew. And I can just see, like, Woody Harrelson in a split field where there's going to be some love for Cranston, some love for McConaughey. I can just see Woody Harrelson as sort of the more TV-friendly actor, and maybe a bit more the outside-the-box choice where they can vote for True Detective without feeling like everyone's telling them to. Like, I don't know.
And Charlie, what about you for Harrelson?
When I watched both the Harrelson and McConaughey episodes, I remember thinking Matthew McConaughey was really strong, but just saying to myself, wow, at almost every moment that McConaughey's really strong, Harrelson matches it. He is on that same level of intensity, of great dramatics. He also has that great scene towards the end of Matthew McConaughey's episode where after he's been shot, his family comes into the hospital room and he just loses it and starts crying. He really is so good, and it really shows that these are two true leads on the show, and they really play off each other extremely well.
Ralph.
I actually have Woody Harrelson in fourth. I don't have him in third, so he's not a top three. I have him in fourth, and it really bums me out because before the nominations, I was thinking Woody Harrelson could win this thing. I was, all for everybody who gave Woody Harrelson props. He was my favorite on the show out of the season long, more than McConaughey. And then I watched the submission, and there's just not much that he's got in it. He's got a great breakdown scene to his wife where he's crying and he's saying what's wrong with me, and he's admitting all of his faults. But then you see him, cheating on his wife, going to the bar with his girl, his mistress, and then getting drunk and following her home because she has another guy in the apartment. And it's just these like dude things that he's doing, and it's not Emmy things. It's just dude, it's like jealous guy stuff that he's doing, and then also watching that episode, Matthew McConaughey is so damn good in Woody Harrelson's episode. I mean, he is so good in that episode, better than he is in his submission. And so like I said, it's painful for me, but I put Woody down at fourth. I still think he can win because he has a lot of great factors going for him. He's been nominated 9 or 10 times. He won for Cheers. He's a true television star, whereas Matthew McConaughey is a film star. So he still has some pros, but I just think There just wasn't enough in the episode. I was hoping he would submit differently, but he didn't.
And Rob, what about you?
Yeah, look, I side more with what Matt was saying. I think he's really spot on there. Harrelson his character wears his heart on his sleeve, and when I'm watching the two of them play against each other, McConaughey and Harrelson, I just sometimes do get frustrated by the McConaughey character, and that's why for a long time I didn't have McConaughey in first, and I thought Harrelson would be a definite upset here. The whole dude stuff that Ralph was referring to, I really thought was really well done, and I really like him in his episode and in McConaughey's episode. I think that he is a dark horse.
So let's talk about McConaughey now, because we've already kind of discussed him. The judges get to see 2 episodes because they see McConaughey and Harrelson's, and in Harrelson's episode, we see the flashbacks of McConaughey before he had the mustache and the long hair, and we see him, in both of the episodes, we see him in the present time. So we keep talking about physical transformations, but this is a great one from McConaughey. I have him in first place for many, many, many reasons. One of them because he just won an Oscar. And look, I know that doesn't really matter in this race, but I think it does, because sometimes these outside influences help them, like Melissa McCarthy winning an Emmy because Bridesmaids was so successful. This is going to be one of those instances. Sorry. And who wants to jump in first for McConaughey? Charlie?
McConaughey has that last moment, the last moment that closes the series, or at least the season. And we take a character who we know is just very cynical, very dark, and in the darkest time of his life, he finds reasons to be hopeful. And that's the speech that the little monologue he has where he talks about after he was in the whole maze structure with the killer is really powerful, and it's a great. I personally think a great feat of acting, and I really think that that's just going to stand out for a lot of those voters.
And Rob?
Sorry, was that Rob?
Yeah, Rob.
Sorry. Yeah, I think he is extraordinary, but I must say, maybe slightly controversially, I don't know, I think he was a little bit overrated, and I've had him in second for a very long time. I have him in first now. I've been convinced. He does get to play the hero. The series or season ends with him really being the hero of the piece, and he's just won a whole bunch of awards for this role as well. The critics sometimes like to champion the underdog, but here they just gave it to him because they recognise that he was, in their mind, phenomenal in True Detective, and I think it's going to be very hard for anyone to overcome that. And so I think with the 2 episodes, he gets to play the flashbacks and the present day, and yeah, he has a lot of stuff to do, and I think that will get him over the line.
Mm-hmm. And Matt?
And that final scene, this was a hard thing when watching these tapes, and I think both of the True Detectives help each other out a lot, because Woody Harrelson has submitted one that's primarily set in 10 years ago. Matthew's set in one that's primarily set in the present, so they've both shown the other side of each other's performances, so I think they're going to both help each other out well there. But yeah, but when you talk about the money scene for Matthew, there just isn't a big Emmy. There's not that Jeff Daniels moment. There's not that Bryan Cranston moment. I just don't see that big scene, and I don't see Emmy voters really caring if someone's a movie star or not. We don't see movie stars win these TV categories very often. You see them more get rewarded in the movie miniseries, and I guess people say his final speech is his big money scene, and that could be a good thing because the voters are probably going to watch that scene a lot because they're going to have to keep on rewinding it to understand what is being said. It's very I don't know. Look, it's a very strong performance. He could very easily win. I think he's in my number 2 slot. So. All jokes aside, I think he's very strong, but there's part of me that just thinks I'm not sure if this is strong enough in this field.
Ralph.
I have him in second, and only in second because of the episode that Woody Harrelson submitted for him. I thought he was great in that episode. I think in the finale, I think you guys know my feelings on the finale of True Detective, but I think it was one of the worst episodes of last season in all of television. And he did have that great that great closing scene, but I don't, and I also just don't buy that because he's like Matt just said, he's an Oscar winner. That the TV Academy and the Film Academy are completely different, and just because a movie star comes and invades television doesn't mean you all of a sudden are going to win an Emmy, especially in such a large category when you have these other nominees that have been in television and paid their dues in television for so long. I don't buy it, and that's why I have Matthew McConaughey in second. But I could easily see him being in first and winning the thing, but that would be solely based on like a Julie Bowen type thing, where Sofia Vergara submits well for Julie Bowen. Woody Harrelson submitted very well for Matthew McConaughey.
The reason
For Ralph though, like, what's his big moment in Harrelson's tape? Like, I agree he's like very good in it, and maybe very close to how good Harrelson is in it. But does he have a moment that'll stick in voters' minds from that episode?
No, I don't think there's. I think his moment was in what he submitted. He had that long speech at the end, and it was very critically acclaimed. But in Harrelson's tape, what he has is like you were saying, he has those 10-year flashbacks. You see him in the interrogation room, all white trashed down, if you will. And then you see him as his older version of himself. So he's got a lot of flashbacks to work with in Harrelson's tape, and he has more screen time in Harrelson's tape than Woody Harrelson even has. So that's why I think that helps him out a lot.
Cool.
The reason I think it's an issue that he's a movie star and that's part of the reason they're going to reward him is because this is essentially an anthology. We're not going to see Matthew McConaughey up next year, so they can't reward him next year. This is their one and only chance. And let's face it, he's not going to do another TV show. Not when he just has an Oscar 5-6 months ago. So this will be their one and only chance to get Matthew McConaughey an Emmy. So that's why I think it is an issue, because when Glenn Close came to TV, she actually won for her first season of Damages, but it was the normal show that would come back every year. So even if they didn't reward her one year, they could have done it the next year. That's not the same case here. So now, I think
could Marcus, though, like on the other side of that coin, could this breed resentment? Like, could there be some voters who go, "Oh, this guy's never done TV before, comes in for one season, and we're voting for him to win an Emmy because he's the big Oscar-winning movie star." Could there be another side?
Backlash. There could be some backlash. Yeah.
What I think would be, I think there might be some towards that, but I think they won't fault him for that, because that was always going to be the structure of the show. From what I remember, that was always going to be the structure of the show. So I don't think that they would put that much blame on him.
Yeah. It's so weird. The Golden Globes this week announced that True Detective will be a miniseries or a limited series. So if McConaughey wins this, the drama actor award at the Emmys, he'll be going up for this brand new category at the Golden Globes. So the Golden Globes, I think they're doing something right by changing that category.
Agreed. Yeah, he's in the wrong category.
They just want him to win and someone else to win. Like, they just want to spread
Oh, so you think they want Mark Ruffalo to win, and they want McConaughey to win?
Okay, well, he takes over from Ruffalo, but I don't know. I feel like they want Jon Hamm or someone up there, whoever's still on TV next year.
Oh, I thought you meant the Emmys.
No. I mean the Globes. I think the Globes. Yeah.
So, okay, in my opinion, we have saved the best for last. I think Bryan Cranston gives the best performance of his career in Ozymandias. It's killing me that I'm not predicting him, but I want to win the prediction contest, so that's why I'm going with McConaughey. Who besides me, who's a huge Breaking Bad fan and they want to start up the Cranston discussion today? Charlie?
We all are.
Yeah, I mean, especially, me and you, Marcus, were such huge fans of the show, and this episode, this culmination of everything we had been waiting for and we had been watching, just culminates in this episode, and it's just amazing. Cranston gets a flashback scene. He gets, we see him, yelling at his family. The snaps his own daughter. I mean, it's just it would normally this would be number one on my list. It's the only thing I could say is that the only reason I don't have him in number one has less to do with cons in terms of his performance, but more just the more pros that I feel are in support of McConaughey taking this.
And Matt?
I think his performance in this episode stays with you so much. This, in some ways, should be, especially when you compare it to all the other takes, in some ways this should be the winner. It shouldn't be that much of a hard decision for us. But he is unlikable in the episode, really, he's a real villain, and when you see and not just a fun villain like we've seen from Heisenberg before, but where you see the real toll it's had on his family. And that phone call at the end, which was selfless in the context of the series, but could seem really mean to voters. And I know I debated, I was arguing with people the week after that aired about whether that was a nice thing that he did or a mean thing that he did at the end. And then I'll put my Chris Beecham hat on and say, if you look like the precedent, it's very hard to win that 4th Emmy in this category. Tony Soprano couldn't do it. James Spader's Alan Shaw couldn't do it. Even when those people have had great tapes to win their 4th Emmys, they've really stumbled at the final hurdle, and we've seen an upset. So, and I think that's the one thing holding back from Cranston, is that I'm going, well, people just don't win their 4th. It's very hard to win a 4th here. However, the last thing I'll say is that it's with the scoring system, I don't know who's going to put Bryan Cranston low on their ballot. He's going to be in the top 3 for everyone. Matthew McConaughey might be a little polarizing, might get low in a few. Woody Harrelson, some people might not be drawn to him. Kevin Spacey could be sort of the same, where some people put him high, some people put him low. Everyone loves Bryan Cranston in this, or at least respects him enough to put him high. And I think that's the biggest thing that's going to help him, is that he's not going to get low on really any ballots.
All right. And if the Oscar helped McConaughey, Ralph, could the Tony Award help Bryan Cranston? He just won that this summer.
No, I don't think there's any correlation between Tony and an Emmy. I think Matt just kind of hit the nail on the head here, is that nobody is going to vote him lower than probably 2 even after seeing this performance, and because it's Bryan Cranston, and because they know this is the last chance they have, as much to award Matthew McConaughey, to award somebody who's made television, binge-watching television, somebody whose character is an icon, an Emmy. This is their last chance, and they didn't award it last year. He's lost twice now in the category. This is a great shot for him to make history, and I think for the reason that Matt says, he can do it. And also, let's be honest, guys, what is more buzzed about right now? Breaking Bad still, or True Detective? If anything, True Detective is on a decline. Nobody's really talking about Matthew McConaughey right now. People are still buzzing about Breaking Bad and how it's the front runner to win drama series. And Bryan Cranston is a huge part of that. And if you want to talk about going from an anti-hero to a hero, in this episode alone, this guy on that last phone call, no matter how you see it, he puts all the blame on himself. He comes out for his family and decides, I'm going to take the fall for everything. I don't want them to be involved in anything. And it's just a show of heroism there. And just in the past, having put himself on the line, making meth probably not the safest thing or best thing to do to raise money for your family, but what choice does the guy have? I mean, if that's what, there are people out there that buy meth. There are people that that I think that they won't look it down on him for that, because they have him before in the past. And this, as Matt also said, this performance was just too damn good to ignore, and that's why I have him in first. I could easily see Matt McConaughey in first. I could see Woody Harrelson or Kevin Spacey even, but Bryan Cranston, I just don't think there's anybody that's going to rank him low. And when you get to the, you know, like in golf, when you have the lowest total, you win. I think that'll be Bryan Cranston at the end.
He's also a hero at the beginning of the episode when he's begging and pleading for Hank to be spared.
Uh,
He's offering these bad guys $80 million to save him. So I think, yes, he is villainous in the episode, and that could be an issue. But Rob, what do you think?
Okay, well, I've had him in my top position for a very long time, and I only switched to McConaughey 2 days ago. I think Ozymandias is one of the greatest episodes of drama ever created on television. I'm serious about that, and I think Bryan Cranston is probably, if not the greatest, then in the top 3 of all time. This is his best performance. Like, I'm really serious here. I really believe he should be taking home his fourth Emmy. That final scene on the phone is just everything for me. He is just, I can't fault him. But I'll just give you a quick anecdote. And I spoke to somebody who works at a network who is very in the know, and this person is usually on the money and very connected and understands how it all works. And this person told me that they didn't buy that part of Ozymandias where he kidnaps his child. That whole bit was so extremely unlikable and out of left field, and that it took them out of the episode, and they didn't buy it, and said that because of that, he is not completely without, any competition in this category, and he's not way out in front. And Ozymandias, sometimes we see Ozymandias and Cranston through a prism or through rose-coloured glasses, and we need to sometimes back off a bit and see that maybe we're just so in love with the character in the show that we don't necessarily see that not every voter feels like what we do. Maybe we're a bit too fanboyish, is what I'm trying to say. But I would still be giving him lots and lots of Emmys, and I'm still thinking about Breaking Bad a year later.
Yeah. And if he wins, he will tie Dennis Franz for 4 acting trophies. Otherwise, Dennis Franz will remain the record holder there. So let's shift gears for just a second and talk about our dream ballot. It could be any of these guys or someone else from TV. Who was your favorite lead actor of the year? I'll just go down the line. Charlie, who was yours?
It was Cranston, hands down. Cranston. There's no competition there. One thing I do think that, I just forgot what I was going to say. So on to the next person.
And Rob, what about you?
Yeah, I agreed. I can't really fault the Emmys for who they chose here. Cranston, for me, would take it, and Spacey as well. But I've got to say, True Detective is of that particular serial killer genre. I think there were 2 better shows in that genre that deserved their lead actors to be nominated. The Killing, Joel Kinnaman was brilliant in the most recent season of The Killing. And for me, Mads Mikkelsen and Hugh Dancy from Hannibal should have been nominated. And I would give the Emmy to Mads Mikkelsen just because.
And Matt.
Like Bryan Cranston, he's just like in a class above everyone else that's been on TV the past year, I think, other than I would say Jon Hamm, who didn't have the most to do on Mad Men this year, so I'd easily give it to Bryan Cranston. But there have been years when Jon Hamm has done on Mad Men stuff at that level, I would say as well. It's a boring answer. I'm sorry, but Bryan Cranston was the best this past year.
It's not boring if you're Bryan Cranston. And Ralph, who's your dream winner?
My dream winner is different than my dream nominees. I like Bryan Cranston, of course. I would is probably has been the best in the last 5 years or so, or however long he's been on. And I agree with Hugh Dancy from Hannibal. That was a great selection. Binge that show and really enjoy it. I think Hugh Dancy's awesome. But I would probably the overall season, my winner would be Woody Harrelson. I loved him in True Detective. I thought he was great. There was so much buzz around Matthew McConaughey, and what he did was just phenomenal. And I would probably give my dream Emmy to Woody Harrelson.
And then for me, my personal 6 are very similar to this. I would knock out Jon Hamm, and I would put in James Spader for The Blacklist. But the winner is Bryan Cranston. So yeah, that is our Slugfest for drama actor. We want everyone to keep coming back to Gold Derby. We're going to do more and more and more of these Slugfests until Emmy Day. So we'll talk to you guys next time.